Good morning, KOTA territory. Welcome to KOTA Now's or KOTA's Political Pulse here on KOTA Now, our social media pages, YouTube and Facebook. We hope you're having a wonderful morning so far. Today we are talking, we have another interview today, right, Blake?
We do.
Special, someone.
Very special.
Yes.
Kind of rare in the state of South Dakota. We have a Democratic state representative with us.
Especially West River.
Yes. Could you introduce yourself a little bit here?
Yes, so I'm Representative Uhre-Balk and from District 32. The first Democrat elected in 18 years, and I might add the top vote getter. But I am in education by trade, and had just served my first legislative session. So,
were you a little bit surprised when you ended up winning? I think we got to just at least address that elephant in the room, because this is a supermajority state, and I'm kind of curious if you're surprised by that, and then also like what you think led to your victory.
I mean, I think I worked really hard. I knocked on a lot of doors. Also, I mean, District 32 is a really diverse district, both politically, economically, all the things. And so I think was ready for a little bit of different representation. I think my education is just so important to so many people in South Dakota. Foundation to democracy, our future for South Dakota. So I think having that background was really important. And then, you know, we've had the supermajority for over 30 years, and so I think it's time to just get a little bit of balance. Right. So I think people were ready for that.
No, hey, that's a fair kind of thought you got going on there. But kind of talk a little bit about, you know, it's 18 years. How does that feel? I mean, what have you heard from your constituents so far?
Yeah, I mean, probably the thing that I got after the election was just that I was a little bit of a bright spot in after the election in November, and so that was just kind of the overarching theme was just a bit of a bright spot.
So being that this is a supermajority state, I'm really curious about just kind of what the relationship is like between the two parties here in the state. You know, we so often see how this plays out on the national level because, let's face it, most people, they're very tuned into national politics. On the state level, I heard a conversation recently that kind of made me think there might be actually some civility here between the two parties.
Oh my gosh, yes, it is way different in Pierre than it is nationally. I mean, yes, in the middle of the bill, what I call the bill drama, it can get kind of tense and maybe a little heated and a bit of back and forth, but you know, as soon as that gavel drops, we work across the aisle, we have great working relationships, we go to the many dinners and mixers and stuff afterwards, and all just interact really well. I was invited to the Republican Women's, they had like a learn how to shoot event at the police academy, and so that was so fun. We had a great time. I've hunted before, but I'm not really a gun person, and so we had a great time. I could not load the little pistol thing. It was like a little I could not load it to save my life, and so they're all coming over and helping me load it, and then, you know, I think they thought that it would be weren't sure what to expect as soon as we started the actual target practice, but I did actually pretty good. So it was a super fun time and connected a lot.
Do you hope to see more of that on the national level? I mean, that just seems like a pretty good bonding scenario for everybody.
You know, what I love about South Dakota is that, you know, it takes about 2 seconds to find out that you're somehow connected to somebody's cousin's family, you know, like, and so you just can't, just the small town connections that happen in almost every situation, it's just so amazing and so important. You know, there are cons to it. You hear about everybody's business, but I think just that both that family connection and that small town connection is so helpful in kind of overcoming some of those political divides, and which I think is hard to do on a national level. And so that's why I just really encourage people to follow state politics, follow local. It's so important.
And for our ratings, we also agree with everything you're saying.
And really quickly, before we get to your questions here, you know, you talk about these connections within the community, within the communities that are in South Dakota, which is especially throughout this vast state. So let's actually, you know, jump right into it. Talk about those connections in Pierre. I mean, it was the first one for you. How did it feel? How do you think it went?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I have a column in the Journal, and if you've gone to any of my speaking events, you might be tired of hearing about it, but it is the best roller coaster of my life. Like, just amazing highs. You know, to be sworn in for the 100th session is so huge. To be sworn in on a session that has the most women ever, the most number of newcomer legislators ever, you know, things like that are just a huge high. And then, you know, pretty quickly you go to some challenging
Into the bill dramas.
into the bill dramas, yes. And you know, I think the biggest thing that I learned is just that you never know when someone might be opposing you on one bill, but then be your co-signer on the next bill.
Right.
So you just always have to be able to work together, to listen, to really hear the opposition's concerns and fears for an issue. Do your research, stick to your values, but then you know, always be ready to go from opposition to team co-sponsor.
So let's talk about the bill drama. Let's get into that now. What do you think were the biggest wins for Democrats this session, and what bills are you most concerned about that got passed this legislative session?
So biggest wins, I mean, SB 83, the ingestion bill was a huge win for South Dakota. We were the last state in the nation to have such a law, and I think it's going to just be a really, really important step towards working towards rehabilitation and not just sending people to prison. So
I'll let you take the floor. If you want to just explain the bill. Obviously, this is lessening the punishment for just simple drug use, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yep. So before it was ingestion was just an automatic felony. And so what it's been changed to is the first incident of it is parole but with treatment options. And second instance, a little heavier parole, but same thing. And then the third, then within a 10-year period, is a felony then. And so it just prioritizes what is actually the issue, and then goes from there. I know some people are concerned that the less stringent punishments will maybe encourage people, or it won't be such as a deterrent. But I think for so many people, the issue is the addiction, and not and not the crime. So we want to be sure to address that. And if they keep doing the crime, then it will be a felony. And that's a pretty big deal.
Were Democrats lobbying pretty heavily for that bill? Were you guys doing a lot of outreach across the aisle to try to get that one through? Because again, this is a super majority, so to get that through, and I know it was actually penned up by a Republican, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yeah. No, it was, there's a little, I like to say that, it's a little challenging for Democrats to bring the bills, but we can swing the bills. And so we are small but mighty, and so, there are two Republican parties in the legislature right now, and so that are in the House for sure, like tied, and the Senate as well. But and so we could definitely, when they were opposing each other, we could be that swing vote that really
provides the majority on a split Republican Party. Can you explain that split? I mean, like, how do you see it from the outside, from somebody who's not in one or the other?
Yeah. So I think there's what they might call themselves the Freedom Caucus. They maybe even a little more conservative, and then kind of maybe moderate Republicans that just have different opposing issues. And there were times that we, could swing with either side. Again, that thing of like, you never know when someone you oppose on one bill is going to be your co-sponsor on another bill. And so, there was a lot of really important close votes. But.
What do you think was the toughest bill for a Democrat to watch get passed this last session?
Well, that's hard to pick the top one, but I think there was a grouping of bills that I'll just call government overreach or making government bigger, and so I think those were HB 1259, the bathroom bill. There's 1239, which was the lock up the librarians, but now I'm calling books on trial bill. And then there were 7 bills that just picked away at our ballot initiative process and that direct democracy that South Dakotans hold so dearly. And, I need to go back and remember of those 7s which actually got passed and which were actually defeated.
One came down to the wire.
It was a
veto
huge-
day
Yes.
was all centered around
Yes.
one of these ballot bills. Where did you, I'll just provide the background here just to make this real simple. I had to report on this the last few weeks. I think I could summarize it well. But essentially,
correct
to
you if you're
get a constitutional amendment on the ballot, you had to go to each senatorial district and raise 5% of the number of votes from the last gubernatorial election. And the fear behind this is that if every county has to have a certain percentage signed off on this, that essentially one county could hold up something that the entire state wanted.
That one county has veto power. Yeah. Yep.
Where did you end up falling on that vote?
So I was originally a no and continued to be a no, even on veto day, even though it passed the House and then was finally killed in the Senate. For those reasons exactly. And it turns out when petition people go, they go to farmers markets, they go to the stock show, they go to these big events that bring people from all over into one place. And so, I wouldn't be surprised if we could actually break down the data that maybe that's already happening. But it adds that extra burden, it adds that extra time, that extra cost. And if it makes it on the ballot, every single South Dakotan will have a say on it by voting. So
we had spoke with Representative Reimer about it, and she had said that if it doesn't get through, which it didn't, that she had kind of planned to maybe work with the legislature, work with the governor to maybe make a version of it that could get through. What changes would you want to see to that bill? Do you think there's a version of this, like maybe not, obviously much would have to be changed to probably sway some of the opinions of some of the lawmakers here, but what version of this do you think could be a compromise from where it originally stands to try to get, the concern is that the big areas have too much influence, right?
Yeah. So, I think they could do, and Mucky kind of talked about this on his House floor speech, but, maybe it's a majority of the districts, or there's some kind of compromise there, not every single one, or maybe it's a lower percentage of signatures, something like that. But when, and I forget the bill number, but when they did pass the moving up the date to turn in signatures, so we're already making it more challenging just with what we have. And so then to add this, we just keep adding these additional requirements that just make it harder and harder. And I think, I know the concern is that there's out-of-state money coming in and affecting these things. But the thing is that it will actually make it more expensive to do these ballot initiatives, and thus either deter our local communities who are struggling to have the funds to do these things, or encourage more out-of-state money. So it's actually counterintuitive.
Well, I was going to ask, kind of talking a little bit about these, especially when it comes to voting. You mentioned a little bit how a lot of South Dakotans hold voting near and dear. You, as I guess the minority, right? Is a minority
to
here.
say the least.
Yes. Just in general, what would you like to see when it comes to when lawmakers talk about these bills? When it comes to that, what would you like to see from either the Democratic Party, from the Republican Party, whatever party it may be? What topics do you want to come up in these conversations?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think there were these concerns that were brought up, but then the bills don't really directly address the concerns. So if the concern is out-of-state money, then let's get some campaign finance reform, making sure that it's easier for local people. And and I know one bill was that we wouldn't have the same topic every single election cycle. Well, I don't know, legislators bring the same topic over and over and over again. So I think another thing is just if we want our citizens with the ballot initiative process to attain to certain standards, then probably as legislators, we probably should have those same requirements applied on us.
I'm really curious, when you see a lot of these bills roll out, maybe I asked this, but what's it like trying to get the Republicans to amend these bills, maybe in a version that the Democrats in the legislature want to see?
It's a great strategy question that I definitely learned a lot about and kind of wrestled with a lot, in that, when is a bill worth adding amendments to make something that maybe isn't, quite something you're excited about, how to make it better, or when it's just a bad bill and it needs to die? So that's a really big question. And, we saw some of these bills that were getting to amendments M and K and Q, and it's just
You start with A, correct?
You start with A.
Full alphabet.
Yeah, I think once you get to like M, it's just like let's
all right, what's going on here? And what I do think there's a bit of a double standard in that, like, a Democrat could bring a bill and it's just not ready for prime time, but someone else brings a bill and it's like, we got till Amendment Z, we're fine, we can send it to the floor. And so that definitely is a challenge. But there was definitely a couple bills, like, for example, 1239 with the lock up the librarian, like that. It was basically what we call Hogtouse in the Senate, and basically became a completely different bill. And definitely worked across the aisle to get that on, and just knowing the vote count and knowing what do we have support for. We knew that we didn't have the support to just actually kill it, so that was definitely a bill that we wanted to vote yes on with the amendment, so that, because when it came back to the House side, it could have gone to a committee again, and we knew that it wouldn't be better. So
where did that bill end up completely, if you want to explain kind of how it finalized?
Yeah, so and it's been a while since I've looked at the exact wording and stuff, but basically it provides a process, which we already had a law for, that had just gone into effect in January. So there hadn't even been a month to really let that previous law go into effect and see if that would actually work. So that was one of our let's just see if this law that we already have on the books, let's see if that solves the problem, as opposed to having this new law. But basically what the new version of 1239 does is it provides a process, outlines a process so that if someone, a parent or citizen or whatever, doesn't like a book in either a library or a school, they just kind of go through this process and talk to the principal, talk to the school board, talk to the library board, and then the final, if they don't like it, the response for any of those results, then they can actually take the book to trial. And a judge can actually rule. This
would be a civil trial, though, not a criminal.
Yeah,
because
no.
before,
Yes.
if I remember right, and again, I've been covering the ballot, the ballot bills recently.
So many.
But if I remember right, it basically removed the affirmative defense for librarians if a child is to view harmful content. Correct.
Yes.
That was kind of the original.
Yes. So before it was taking the librarians to court. Now we're taking the books to court. And so a judge would rule on the book as to whether or not that book can be in a library or school, or has to do some kind of something around it.
I'm really curious at the executive level what it's been like for Democrats in the legislature. I mean, when you were elected, you were signed up to actually work underneath the executive order of Kristi Noem. Governor Noem was going to be governor, and then she obviously went and joined the Trump administration, and now Governor Roden has taken over. Can you explain what the transition was like for you guys? And I know on top of that, you had a meeting with the governor, if you want to maybe give us some insight into that.
We've had several meetings with the governor, and it is, I didn't know before what it was like, but I've been told that never happened. And so it's been a huge breath of fresh air. Really appreciated in his State of the State address, or inauguration address, that, he was going to be about civility and working with everyone, and so far has, we don't agree with all the things that he's either signed or not signed, but just having him come to some of our meetings and actually have those conversations with us has been huge.
Without getting into attorney-client privilege here too much, can you share what these meetings are like, what's discussed, and kind of
Yeah,
what these
I
look
mean,
like?
most of it is just kind of most of it is before big bills or big votes, that, just trying to see where are we standing on it, what are concerns, what would be amendments that, could make it better, or just how address those kinds of issues. So, like before the prison, that came in and talked to us about that. And then, just giving a heads up before the property tax reset and new kind of idea that's out there. Just giving us a heads up for that so that we kind of knew what is, because as you know, the press comes and tries to grab our attention instantaneously, and
Can we do that?
we want to be prepared for it. I mean,
I don't know. I don't
Is
think
that something that I do? Am I in the hallway with
But-
a microphone?
personally, I've never noticed it.
That would have
but
been me.
it's so good because we can. I appreciate you and the other reporters. It's such important work, and we appreciate all the coverage for sure.
And before we wrap up here, I know we have we're getting close to the kind of set time limit here. If we can ask like maybe one or two more questions, I'll let you take it, and then I have one more question to wrap up the whole thing.
Okay. I got to make this one count. Now I feel like I've got a big question that I have to make count. Well, we'll talk about property taxes. I mean, the governor has just rolled out his, and by the way, like I know this has been something we've covered a lot. Every time I pitch a property tax story in this building, believe you me, people are like, another one? And it's like, yes, this is a continuing story. There's a lot of people who feel like more action needs to be taken. I mean, that includes the governor. And so he's rolled out his latest proposal, which is to allow counties to implement an up to 0.5 sales tax to offset property taxes. What are your thoughts on that strategy? And I mean, I'll just let you take the floor with that.
Yeah, thus far, I'm excited to talk to county commissioners and talk to more people to kind of see, but from, and I'm sure we'll find out lots of nitty-gritty details from the study session coming up. But I just so appreciate having a plan to start with, because it is so much easier to start with something and be able to tweak it, punch holes in it, or lift it up, whatever. It's so important to start with something as opposed to trying to get a group of people in the room and everyone's.
Did you hear his comments on this when I had asked him about this on Monday?
No.
He basically said, I felt like there was a sigh of relief.
Yes.
That at least we had kind of a starting point.
Yes.
Because, look, I've been there. It's hard
Yeah,
sometimes to
yeah.
get the ball rolling.
Yes, and you have just so many different opinions
Yeah.
going in different ways, and so that just really focuses the conversation. So I really, really appreciate that. But yeah, no, I mean, I think there doesn't seem to be too many downsides. Counties can opt in; they're not required. It helps the counties that were most. There are 5 counties that were most hit by just super fast, large increases in property taxes, and with that tiny sales tax increase, that will and most of those counties are also counties that have the most tourism, and so the tourists will be helping to pay that extra sales tax. So that's great. And again, if a county commissioner doesn't want to do it, but the citizens do, they can go through that initiated measure process and either get it on or get it off. And so it seems like a win-win, but again, we'll see, as I'm sure talking to everyone and as we learn more about it and what the nitty-gritty details are, we'll have some differing opinions.
Well, talking a little bit about, kind of as this final question here, what do you hope to accomplish, at least for the rest of the term that you have? What do you hope to accomplish for kind of your constituents here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually already really excited for next session, just having that first one under my belt and kind of be able to move forward. I just want to continue to focus on education. And then, I brought a lithium mining bill forward, so I want to continue to try to tweak that and see if we can try to work with everyone and get that more involved. I'd also really love to really look at energy with energy and commerce. I was on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and we're thinking about doing some tours, looking at some data centers. So we want to try to get ahead of the game with some of those that might want to come in and making sure that South Dakota can can handle that, and that maybe we benefit from that, and because they aren't always a win-win for South Dakota. So I think energy, the environment, and education.
Sounds like an exciting.
Can I have one more question?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'm sorry. You know how it is. You talk about stuff. I'm curious what your take is on the airport funding too. If that's, I know you were co-signed onto that. If you were trying to, I know you guys were trying to get that airport funding through. And,
yeah, maybe my fourth E is economic development.
So
I got lots of E's.
Can you explain what happened there with the airport funding? Because this would have been the Rapid and the Sioux Falls Airport. What happened there, and kind of, if you have any action plan on that next
Yeah, you know, it was a disappointment. It's a win in that yes, the state will invest these dollars, but it's also a federal match, and so we get double our money for that. Tourism is such a huge industry in South Dakota, number 2 under ag, and so it would help develop those industries and all the industries that are related to it. It would just be a huge boom for South Dakota, and so there is all kinds of different arguments against it, but as far as moving forward, I think it's just continuing to educate on how those tourism dollars, how they benefit the state, and how and it's not just about growth and getting more people to move here, but it's really about creating opportunities for our kids to stay here. We need to create opportunities. We're one of the biggest brain drain states in the country, and so we just want to make sure that our youth can have opportunities to stay and stick around. So.
Well, I'll tell you right now, tourism kind of brought me here to the
place.
So,
definitely.
Here for the fishing. Yes, here for the hiking trails and everything that, because it's beautiful.
Me and Humberto have definitely spent time on our smartphones, like, look at this, man.
Yeah.
This is where I was over the weekend.
And it's always fun. I mean, hey, with such a beautiful area,
it's amazing.
Can't avoid it. Yeah. Well, thank you, Nicole, for joining us here on KOTA's Political Pulse. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And as for you watching right now, thank you for tuning in this Monday, Monday morning.
Gonna be a month.
Yes, Monday morning. I don't know why I'm already wanting it to be Tuesday. I'll tell you that right now. Well, thank you for tuning in today, Monday morning. It's been a pleasure to have you sit down with us and kind of listen in on the conversation. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your Monday. See ya.